It was a bright, sunny morning when Addie, Michael, and Carl first met Stillwater. The children lived in a small, quiet neighborhood where nothing much ever happened. Their days were filled with bike rides, backyard adventures, and the occasional squabble over whose turn it was to pick the game. But on this particular morning, something extraordinary was about to unfold. Addie was the first to notice him. She had been chasing her younger brother Carl around the yard when she looked up and saw a giant panda standing in the driveway. He carried an umbrella in one paw and balanced a wide-brimmed hat on his head. Addie froze. "Michael!" "Carl, look!" she called, pointing toward the panda. Michael, the eldest and always curious, came running. "Is that a panda?" he asked, tilting his head in disbelief. "It can't be," said Carl, who was still trying to catch his breath. "Pandas don't live here." But there he was, a real panda, smiling gently and waving as if he belonged in their neighborhood all along. "Hello," the panda said, his voice deep and kind. "I'm Stillwater. I've just moved in next door. Would you like to come over for tea?" Tea with Addie and a story about giving. Addie was the first to take Stillwater up on his offer. She arrived at his house later that afternoon, a little nervous but very excited. The panda's home was charming. A small cottage surrounded by a garden filled with blooming flowers and a serene koi pond. Stillwater welcomed her with a tray of tea and some cookies. Addie noticed that he moved slowly and deliberately, as though every step was part of a dance. They sat together under a tree, and after a while, Stillwater asked, "Would you like to hear a story?" Addie's eyes lit up. "Yes, please." Stillwater leaned back and began. The story of the farmer's luck. Once upon a time, Stillwater started. There was a farmer who lived with his son in a small village. They were very poor and relied on their one horse to plow the fields and carry heavy loads. One day, the horse ran away. The villagers came to the farmer and said, "What terrible luck!" The farmer simply replied, maybe not." A few days later, the horse returned, bringing with it 2 wild horses. The villagers came again and exclaimed, "What wonderful luck!" The farmer smiled and said, maybe not." Later, the farmer's son tried to ride one of the wild horses but fell and broke his leg. The villagers rushed to the farmer, crying, "What terrible luck!" The farmer, calm as ever, said, maybe not." Soon after, soldiers came to the village, recruiting young men to fight in a war. Because the son's leg was broken, he was spared. The villagers once again declared, "What wonderful luck!" And the farmer said, maybe not." Addie tilted her head as she thought about the story. "I don't get it," she admitted. Stillwater chuckled. "The story reminds us that what seems like good or bad fortune can change. We don't always know how things will turn out. Sometimes it's best to simply wait and see." Addie nodded slowly, beginning to understand. When she left Stillwater's house that afternoon, she couldn't stop thinking about the story, Michael's visit and a lesson on holding on. The next day, it was Michael's turn to visit Stillwater. He was eager to see what all the fuss was about. Stillwater greeted him with a bamboo mat and invited him to sit near the koi pond. As they sipped their tea, Michael told Stillwater about his recent troubles. "My brother and sister always bother me," he said. "Sometimes, I feel like I can't get any peace." Stillwater listened carefully, then asked, "Would you like to hear a story?" Michael shrugged. "Sure, I guess." Stillwater smiled and began. The story of the 2 monks. Once, there were 2 monks traveling together, a younger monk and an older monk. As they walked along a muddy road, they came to a river where a young woman stood, unable to cross. She was dressed in fine clothes and didn't want to ruin them in the mud. Without hesitation, the older monk picked her up, carried her across the river, and set her down on the other side. She thanked him and went on her way. The younger monk was shocked. They had taken vows not to touch women, yet the older monk had ignored this rule. For hours, the younger monk stewed in silence. Finally, he couldn't contain himself and blurted out, "How could you carry that woman? You know it's against our vows." The older monk looked at him calmly and said, "I set her down hours ago. Why are you still carrying her?" Michael frowned, trying to figure out what the story meant. But he wasn't carrying her anymore. Stillwater nodded. Exactly. Sometimes we hold on to things like anger or frustration long after we should have let them go. It weighs us down. The older monk understood that. The younger monk didn't. Michael thought about all the times he had held on to arguments with his siblings, letting them ruin his day. Maybe it was time to let go. Carl's adventure and the value of perspective. On the third day, Carl decided to visit Stillwater. Carl was the youngest and often felt left out. He wanted to know what made Stillwater so special. When he arrived, Stillwater handed him a small box. "What's this?" Carl asked. "Open it," Stillwater said with a twinkle in his eye. Inside the box was a stack of small papers, each with a drawing or word written on it. Carl pulled one out. It had a picture of a tree with the words "See things differently." "What does this mean?" Carl asked. Stillwater smiled. "Let me tell you a story, the story of the empty cup." A university professor once went to visit a Zen master, eager to learn about Zen. The master welcomed him and served tea. The master poured tea into the professor's cup, but he didn't stop. The tea overflowed, spilling onto the table and floor. The professor couldn't help but shout, "Stop! The cup is full." The master smiled and said, "You are like this cup, full of opinions and assumptions. How can I teach you Zen unless you first empty your cup?" Carl giggled at the idea of a cup overflowing with tea. "So, you mean I should try to think differently?" "Yes," Stillwater said. "Sometimes when we hold too tightly to what we think we know, we miss what's right in front of us. A fresh perspective can change everything." Carl left Stillwater's house with a lighter heart and a new way of looking at the world. The panda who changed everything. Over the next few weeks, the children visited Stillwater often. They shared their worries, their dreams, and their stories, and in return, Stillwater shared his wisdom. Addie learned to be patient and not judge events too quickly. Michael discovered the peace that comes from letting go of anger. Carl found the joy of seeing things from a fresh perspective. The panda with the umbrella and the gentle smile had changed their lives in ways they never could have imagined. A final lesson. One evening, the children sat together under the tree in Stillwater's garden. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. "Stillwater," Addie said, "why do you always tell us stories?" The panda smiled. "Stories help us see the world differently. They remind us of what's important. And sometimes, they help us find answers we didn't even know we were looking for." The children nodded, understanding in their own way. As the stars began to appear in the sky, they sat in comfortable silence, grateful for their friend who had shown them the beauty of slowing down, listening, and learning. Stillwater didn't just teach them lessons. He gave them memories they would carry forever. A story to remember. Zen Shorts is more than just a book. It's a treasure trove of wisdom wrapped in simple, heartfelt stories. Jon J. Muth's illustrations are as calming as Stillwater himself, capturing the magic of each moment. Through the panda's gentle guidance, readers of all ages are reminded of life's simple yet profound truths. Whether you're young or old, Stillwater's stories will stay with you, offering gentle reminders of patience, perspective, and the power of letting go. It's a book to cherish, a story to share, and a reminder that wisdom often comes in the simplest of forms. Let me know if you'd like further refinements. Stay tuned for more enlightening content. Head over to www.mybookssummary.com. Don't forget to subscribe and share the magic with friends. And let's grow together through the power of books and interesting stories.